Now, I'm not going to bury the lead on you. Fragrance Point is one of the most bizarre and convincingly alien games I have ever played. But it's going to be genuinely hard to talk to you about it without you having seen some of it first, so we're going to jump into my first experience of the game, and then once we've seen some of that, we're going to talk about it properly. Also, thanks for clicking on this channel. I'm your host, the Doom Prophet. When I'm not forecasting major future events, I like to play old and weird games. So join me as we take a look at Fragrance Point. Okay, so first off, I'm going in mostly blind. When games like this get on my radar, that is to say, potentially weird indie games, what I typically do is just wishlist it on Steam, but I actually ignore any trailers because I don't want to spoil anything. Right off the bat, very solid title screen. We're definitely leaning into the psychedelic with the visuals, and my initial supposition based on our nice little custom cursor is that we're going to play as a little green man. Standard alien stuff. How appropriate. Let's start up the game, which immediately begins in a very inventive tutorial where it seems like whatever our player character is, well, we're getting assembled and having our functions checked. It looks like at our core, we're a heart with eyeballs, and then this future factory adds to us bit by bit. We seem to be organic at the core, piloting some sort of space-age quadrupedal mech that has jetpacks built in. And for whatever reason, we've got these two melons installed that seem pretty important. And yeah, overall, this is one of the most unconventional player characters ever. Like, I really struggle to think of a video game protagonist that looks weirder, but I invite you to prove me wrong in the comments since it boosts my engagement and I'm supposed to try to goad the audience into leaving a comment. Like, you absolute ignoramus. Fragrance Point is nowhere near the weirdest player character. How could you forget the famous UFO 50 game Mooncat where you play as Mooncat? Anyway, I got off track. We get a cool little tutorial and the voice tells us to access our item wheel and use the lipstick, which is, you know, a little strange in itself. Like, we don't have a lot of information at this point, but the world looks pretty futuristic and I'm not seeing a lot of use for lipstick right now. And furthermore, you might think lipstick is like a one-time use item, but actually the lipstick is your main projectile weapon. And when you hold the button down, you shoot infinite lipstick everywhere and destroy the tutorial robot, leaving you free to wander in this place. So we look around and see lots of chrome, shiny surfaces, nice smooth angles, and we begin to control our flesh mech and awkwardly make our way over to a flower, which is obviously a spaceship. I don't know why you would think otherwise. Then we get launched into where the game takes place, a space station known as Fragrance Point. At least I'm pretty sure that's the name based on context clues. Okay, so we roll into town and immediately are hit with an almost overwhelming sensory experience. Pulsating music, bright lights, brighter colors, shiny objects, and bizarre alien creatures are all present. Armed only with lipstick and the power of speech, kind of, we begin to wander around because, dear viewer, we don't really have a goal at this moment. And in fact, we never really get one. Now, this isn't exactly unusual in the weirdo games I play. You get dropped in an LSD Dream emulator, you figure it out pretty quickly, but this game is completable, has a narrative, and has a surprising amount of mechanics and depth, making this game even more unique, as at any point you can just stand up and say, I'm done. And the game isn't really going to argue with you since he didn't give you an objective in the first place. Anyway, back to what we were doing. It kind of takes a while to get your bearings in this game. The environments are insane, and the geometry of the area isn't exactly as straightforward as you might imagine level 1 of a video game to be. Let's look around, take in the sights. The visuals of this game are extremely cohesive. It's futuristic, smooth, and shiny with a touch of organic thrown in. When I was first playing the game, I thought maybe the title of this video might be the first Frutiger Arrow video game, but I don't think that's really it. It's kind of tough to nail down. Is it Frutiger Arrow? Is it psychedelic? Is it 2000s future aesthetic? Is it the cover of a trance album? I couldn't quite place it, but I'll come back to that in a second. So the beginning area has this monorail with paths that loop back in on themselves, but once we've made it out of these confusing tunnels, we find some things. Honestly, looking at these guys, it's tough to know which end I should be addressing, and that actually ends up being a strength of this game. The creatures and robots here are so genuinely strange that it ends up reinforcing the authenticity of this experience. Every creature looks like it pulled itself out of the worst run of Spore. Time for a Doom Prophet fun fact. Fun fact, they used to have inventive and creative games in the mainstream. I know it's hard to believe, but Spore actually had a lot of money and hype behind it. So before you play the Assassin's Creed or whatever open world game that has 200 things that it puts on the winamp for you, just think about that. There used to be cool games and you didn't even have to go on a scavenger hunt on the internet for them. Something to think about. Anyway, these Spore creatures seem to be entirely friendly. This makes all the encounters you have strangely endearing, like this guy right here, who is my best friend in the whole galaxy. The game cultivates a rather pleasant tone that feels like a 60s era take on the optimistic promise of the space-age future. Anyway, it's around this point when I'm talking to what I might describe as a tour guide / info booth worker that I realize the entire environment and the characters in it are reacting to the music. This space station is a gigantic disco, and everything in it is a music visualizer. And then, it hits me. I realize the visual aesthetic of this game, it's a playable Winamp skin. Okay, so for those of you that have no emotional connection to the words I just said, let me explain. In the early internet days before high-speed connections made streaming things viable, you had to download music. You wouldn't download a car, would you? And when you did, you would play it with a program, and that program was Winamp. And just like your room that was customized in 2000s band posters, you were going to customize Winamp too. There was a bunch of custom skins that I'm hoping still exist so I can show them here. Please let this work in post. I beg of you, internet. Anyway, this game is a first of its kind, a new genre, a playable Winamp experience. It is Winamp Core. No, it's not a particularly creative name, but I'm still coining it. At least I think I'm coining it. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, I'm coining it. Anyway, I'm not an expert in aesthetics, but this sort of look is kind of re-emerging. It's like what people in Y2K thought the future was going to look like. Sort of like how retrofuturism is like how people in the 60s thought the future was going to look like. This is sort of like millennial futurism. Wait, has that been coined yet? So, obviously with this game's Winamp core aesthetics, it has a strong connection to music. So let's talk about the music. The music is really good, and that's about all I can say because I'm afraid to give this the wrong genre. Like, what's the difference between trance and breakcore and drum and bass? I don't know, but the internet will yell at me if I get it wrong, and I don't know what genre this game's music is. All I can say is it's good. So in the clips as it goes by, listen to it, tell me what you think in the comments below. What kind of genre is it? What would you call it? But the strongest connection to Winamp is, of course, the visualizer. And that's really what the game feels like. You're playing the Winamp visualizer. You're traveling through the tunnels of time. It is the future. You're listening to tasty jams, and everything is shiny and chrome. So we continue in our playable Winamp skin, and then we kind of run out of stuff to do in this area, so the game naturally just pushes us towards this next zone. Here, we meet the closest thing this game really gets to telling you what to do. A friendly little alien that's on this space station to study primitive mechanics like levers. If you visit this creature at different intervals, he'll give you vague hints on where to go next. We then enter a gigantic tunnel, the purpose of this I can only guess, and I immediately notice these gigantic... maybe they're robots? You can push them around, and I notice that bizarrely, or perhaps at this point it's to be expected, they have lips on one side, and you can push them together to get an achievement. Now, I haven't really talked about the controls at this point, but you probably guessed they're kind of weird. Your character is pretty floaty, and the jetpacks obviously contribute to this. Of course, the game doesn't give you a jump button, it gives you a jump charging button. I wouldn't say I enjoy how this game controls, but it doesn't get in the way. It almost feels to me like at some point in the development there was more reason to have a slidey feeling in a jetpack, like maybe racing was going to be a component, but nothing like that ever comes up. And you'll eventually warm up to the controls of the game, and it never really demands precision, so it becomes a moot point. Anyway, by now, based on a few hints, we've wandered into a park. We've conversed with quite a few of these alien denizens, and one even introduces itself to us, so we know in the future they still have the concept of names. That's comforting. With no specific goal in mind, I'm still just wandering around when, by chance, I see this bizarre sequence of these little alien spiders going into a tunnel. I figure why not, and follow them down. Down here in the sewers of the space station isn't really any more straightforward than the rest of the game, and after poking around it seems like I'm stuck. Now this is the part where my assumption that the game wouldn't allow me to softlock myself leads me to try some random stuff, so I start pushing those alien spiders together, and look at that. When they touch, they combine. Eventually I combine all of them together and they shrivel up and die, leaving a thing. Now obviously I touch the thing and my screen pulsates, and we check our item bar and boom, we have our first item, which looks kind of like an almond. So when we try it out, what happens? Well, we shoot an almond, which hatches into a little green mushroom man. But guess what? The little almond men can interact with the environment. And look, you can put one of the almond men in a hamster wheel and power the platform for you to get back up. The game has finally revealed its true nature to us. It's a 3D Metroidvania. Stop! Okay, come here. So, because of the nature of this game, I can't really talk about it any further without spoiling it. And if I show you, it might take away some of the joy of you experiencing that yourself. So let's get this out of the way. I highly recommend this game. It's one of the weirdest things you're ever going to play, and it's only a couple bucks on Steam. So, I want you to go experience it for yourself. With that said, the rest of the video is going to have spoilers because I want to talk about this with somebody. So, proceed at your own risk. Okay, so having the almond men gives us access to a new area, which we can sort of glean from a hint from our friendly yellow hint giver alien. Apparently, Fragrance Point has a broadcast network with a show about crystal babies. With our trusty mushroom men, we can now enter and completely ruin the broadcast, which, no, wasn't my first instinct, but now that I've played the games many times, I can assure you this is what you're actually supposed to do. Now, when we leave the TV station, we get a nasty surprise. This game apparently has an antagonist. And after watching the sinister scene play out, you know exactly as much as I do. Is it an alien? Is it an earthling? Who knows? For all I know, we could be on this thing's side, except for the tone of the scene was very much cartoon villain. Anyway, disrupting the broadcast causes this gigantic alien in the park to get a life. Prior to that, we're going down, he was wearing his Apple Vision Pro and parked over this hole, which leads us to a crystalline cave where we have to play hide and seek with a bunch of worms, and once we do, the mama worm is so jazzed we babysit the little worms, she gives us access to the worm cutter, which lets us cut glass. Now, still lacking direction, but with quite a few more tools, I wander around and use the almond men to open up a new section, which is the station's power core, I guess. Here is the first puzzle that I actually got stuck on for quite some time. There's this voice-activated door, but our character can't really speak so much as squeak. And what you're supposed to do is physically bump into this caretaker robot until it's near the locked door, then talk to it, which I thought was a pretty hilarious solution. Anyway, once we do, we get this electricity power, which is pretty cool. And oh yeah, there's a brain drill here now, and also this construction foreman wants us to gather all of his crew called whims into a hive that he gives us. So that's something to look out for now, I guess. Now, at this point, I get giga stuck. With my new tools, I can access this gym, and I can tell there's supposed to be something I do here, but after bumping into everything and using all my powers on basically every object in the game, I'm dumbfounded. I keep checking the hint alien, but he's got nothing for me, so I'll tell you guys what the solution is as some sort of catharsis. You're supposed to run on a treadmill until it arbitrarily becomes night. Then this nightmare creature appears, and you're supposed to piss off this other alien, causing him to shoot lasers which you can guide into this demon coin, causing him to explode. Now that it's nighttime, the party has begun, and that's all well and good, but we've got bigger problems because this brain drill is threatening the peace. We'll have to use all of our tools to shut this down, which triggers the end sequence of the game. The weird villain alien is trying to escape, and it's up to us to stop him. Running an endgame gauntlet and destroying the space station, blowing up all of our friends. What? So, this game has a really interesting mechanic that I honestly think should be in every game, where the NPCs have a little discussion about your performance after the fact. And this is where the player is supposed to gather further hints about how to get the game's good ending, since obviously this can't be the real thing. The friendly aliens tell you all the ways you messed up, and it leads me to compulsively playing this game repeatedly over and over. And let me tell you, there is some cryptic malarkey going on in this game. Like, during the escape sequence, there's this big red door that you can't open. It taunts me every time I beat the game, and I figure it must be tied to this big red button, right? The button's got 3 lights representing something, and then I can press it, right? So, 2 of the things required to activate the button are what I would consider a nice little secret for the dedicated player. But the 3rd is so unbelievably tucked away, it is crazy. But even that button doesn't open the door. So then, I kind of forgot to mention, but there's this pink gunk floating everywhere, literally called gunk, that you can collect and launch into space with a fun minigame. And there's an achievement for collecting it all, but I can't get it. And if you clip the camera behind the big red door, you can see gunk, so that can't be it, right? So then I do all the other alien side quests, which involves getting this guy fresh and dressed for the big party, and then getting this other guy access to clothes to get fresh and dressed for the big party. Also, shout out to the world's weirdest character customization UI. It's stuff like this that I really appreciate because it's like even the menus of this game weren't designed for humans, and the clothes your flesh mech can wear are basically 3D printed math graphs. So, the most important side quest to get the good ending is actually helping my bestest friend in the whole galaxy get promoted, and also is an incredibly obtuse process, but the result is going to cyberspace and having this 6-star fox battle. But the door still isn't open, even after getting the good end in the game. I guess we'll never know. Also, who was the hand in the start menu? Well, I think that just about wraps up everything here. I hope you've enjoyed this journey into an alien space station as much as I have. Now, as always, I suggest you go buy this game and play it, and essentially vote with your wallet, because I want more games like this to be made. Oh, I hate to hammer it in over and over again, but AAA gaming is basically dead to me. So I rely on indie devs like this, making indie games like this, and them succeeding. So please go buy this game, go support indie devs. Anyway, I've been your host, the Doom Prophet. Come back next time. Or maybe click this video right here. This one is well, it's the one that YouTube thinks you're going to watch the most. So, you know, if that doesn't work, then choose this one. This is the one I picked because I like this one. Bye.